This spiritual gift is not a privilege. It's a memory, and only old souls carry it. Carl Jung. If you feel too much, maybe you carry the gift of an old soul. That wound you don't understand might be the gift of an old soul. Have you ever felt out of place, even among those who love you? Have you walked through life with the sense that you're carrying something you can't explain? A memory that isn't just yours, a knowledge you never learned, a wound you don't remember living through, yet it lives inside you? Maybe it's not confusion or anxiety or emotional weakness. Maybe it's a gift so deep, so strange, so sacred, that many have called it a curse. A gift not everyone can understand, because it doesn't come wrapped in achievements, titles, or recognition. This gift can't be taught. It's not earned by merit. You're born with it. You suffer with it. It's the spiritual gift of old souls. And if you're here listening to this, maybe you carry it too. Old souls don't shine because they want attention. They shine precisely because they don't seek it. Camouflaged in silence, sensitivity, and introspection, they don't look for the spotlight. They're not here to shout truths, but to whisper memories. They don't come to convince. They come to help us remember. These souls aren't wise because of age. They are wise through experience, accumulated across lifetimes, losses, and lessons that go beyond a single existence. And while these words might sound poetic, the reality is much harsher. Because carrying this gift doesn't mean having answers. It means carrying questions that hurt. Why do I feel so much when no one else seems to? Why does other people's pain affect me as if it were my own? Why do I feel so deeply alone, even when surrounded by others? This isn't a path of light. It's a path through shadows. A path where the soul is tested again and again, until it begins to remember who it is and why it came here. If you've ever felt like you just know things without having learned them, like you understand others' pain without them saying a word, like the world as you see it is just a thin layer hiding something much deeper underneath, then maybe you're not lost. You're remembering, and that process, painful, confusing, but deeply necessary, is what many old souls are going through right now, on this very planet, in silence, without knowing they're not alone. Because there is a language beyond words, a frequency beyond sound, a presence that doesn't need explanation. And you've felt it. This video isn't for everyone. It's for you. For that part of your soul that's been waiting for a sign, a pause, a spark to ignite the memory. Stay until the end, because what you're about to remember might not only change your life, it might bring you back to yourself. There was a moment in my life when I stopped searching for answers in the noise. I turned off the music, closed the books, stopped chasing after others, and I was left alone. Total silence. It was there, in that empty space, that something different began to be heard. It wasn't a loud voice. It was a feeling, a soft echo coming from deep within. It didn't speak in words. It spoke in memories. And they weren't ordinary memories. They were ancient. They were mine. But they also belonged to something greater than me. I began to realize that everything that made me feel weird wasn't a mistake. My sensitivity, my intuition, my way of seeing the world were not flaws. They were signs. For years, I tried to fit in. I tried to be stronger, faster, more practical. I tried to feel less, to be normal. But something inside me resisted. It felt like I was betraying something sacred every time I forced myself to be someone I wasn't. And even though I hid it well, there was a sadness that never completely left. A nostalgia without a name. A longing I couldn't explain. Have you ever felt that? As if your soul remembered something your mind couldn't understand. As if you had lived 1,000 lives before this one, and still didn't quite belong anywhere. I know how that feels. That sense of disconnection. As if you're living at a different rhythm on a different plane in a different time. And the most painful part is, no one sees it. Because on the outside, everything seems fine. You work, you smile, you show up. But inside, something weighs on you, as if you were made of something different. As if normal life just isn't enough. This isn't about depression or drama. to something much deeper, a disconnection from the superficial, and a silent call toward what's essential. That's what old souls experience, a kind of inner exile, not because they're broken, but because they remember something most have forgotten. And as hard as it is to accept, that emptiness, that inner silence, is the doorway to awakening. I'm not here to give you quick answers. I'm not here to tell you what to do with your life. I'm just here to say what few dare to speak out loud. Maybe you're not broken. Maybe you're waking up. And that, as painful as it may be, is the beginning of your transformation. The conflict isn't outside. It never was. Even though we've tried for years, we look for blame, for mistakes, for external causes. But what's holding us back lives within. It's not bad luck. It's not a lack of discipline. It's a hidden echo, an inner part of us that, without realizing it, is sabotaging our light. Do you know why? Because that dark fragment is protecting you. And this is where it gets more complex. Carl Jung called it the shadow, that part of you that was rejected, humiliated, or ignored at some point in your story, and now acts from the unconscious as the guardian of your pain. The shadow isn't evil, it's memory, and its mission is to keep you from feeling what once broke you. That's why, without knowing it, you sabotage your most intimate relationships. That's why you pull away when someone truly sees you. That's why you hold yourself back just when you're about to achieve something meaningful. Your unconscious doesn't do this out of hate. It does it out of love for your wounded self. Maybe you were a child who felt too much, and someone told you that was a weakness. So your shadow learned to harden you, to disconnect you from your emotions, so you'd never feel that vulnerability again. Maybe you were a little girl who wanted to be seen, but you were ignored or ridiculed, so you learned how to disappear, to stay small, to not ask for anything. Because every time you tried to be yourself, it hurt. That's how the inner saboteur works. It's not an enemy. It's an archaic protector, a part of you that once swore to defend you, even from yourself. Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And that's exactly what happens. We create patterns, repeat stories, surround ourselves with people who mirror our wounds, and everything feels like chaos, chance, or punishment. But in reality, it's your soul's way of teaching you what you have yet to heal. Old souls feel this more intensely, because they don't just carry their personal shadow. They carry collective archetypes, ancestral memories, symbols from far beyond. Have you ever felt a sadness with no clear origin? A fear that makes no sense, yet paralyzes you? An unexplainable longing to go home, without even knowing where that is? That's not madness. That's depth. That's your soul remembering. And it's also the manifestation of a shadow that's asking to be acknowledged. Old souls are not victims. They are guardians. They carry memories that many have forgotten. And in their silence, they hold untold stories. That's why, at times, the inner conflict becomes overwhelming. Not just because it disconnects us from the world, but because it disconnects us from ourselves. You ask yourself, why is it so hard for me to move forward? Why do I repeat the same mistakes? Why do I have so much love to give, but shut down whenever someone tries to get close? The answer lies in the unconscious, in that part of you that still doesn't trust the light, because it once learned that shining was dangerous. And it's not your fault. What happened is that your inner light, your purest essence, got trapped beneath layers of protection. And those layers aren't mistakes. They were adaptations, survival strategies. But now, they're no longer necessary. You're no longer that helpless child. You're no longer that little girl who depended on others to feel safe. Today, you can look at your shadow with new eyes, not as an enemy, but as a part of you that deserves to be heard. Because here lies the true power of transformation, not in destroying what blocks us, but in understanding it. Old souls have a special sensitivity for this. They can read between the lines, feel the wounds others hide, sense truths that haven't been spoken. But sometimes, they forget to turn that gift inward. You become the therapist for everyone, the counselor for many, But who listens to the old soul when it breaks? Maybe you've been that person, the one who's always there for others, the one who holds on, who understands, who forgives, but inside feels exhausted. And that's where the real conflict appears. It's not that you lack strength. It's that you've used so much of it just to survive, that you've forgotten what it feels like to simply live. The old soul carries immense potential, but also an ancestral burden. And part of its journey is learning to release it, to stop carrying the pain of the world, and start embracing its own story. You don't need to fight your shadow. You just need to know it, to look at it with compassion, and say firmly yet lovingly, "Thank you for protecting me, but I don't need you to help me survive anymore. Now I'm ready to live." Here comes the hardest truth to accept, but also the most liberating. It wasn't bad luck. It wasn't the universe working against you. It wasn't that there was something wrong with you. It was love. Yes, a misunderstood love, but love nonetheless. A kind of love you don't see in movies. A love not sung about in songs. A hidden love, born in your unconscious to keep you safe. Your mind doesn't sabotage you out of cruelty. It protects you because, once upon a time, it believed that being yourself was dangerous. That being authentic hurt. That being vulnerable led to rejection. So, with the logic of a wounded child, you built an internal defense system. That system had one mission: to keep you from ever feeling that pain again. Do you remember that moment? Maybe not clearly, but your soul does. The day you silenced your truth out of fear. The day you pretended it didn't hurt. The day you decided that feeling was too much. That was the moment your unconscious created a program. And ever since, it's been protecting you. Protecting you from what? From your own expansion. Because to grow, you have to take risks. And to risk, you have to feel. And to feel, you have to open your heart. And that's where the wound lives. So every time you're about to achieve something meaningful, that part of you shows up. And it stops you. With anxiety, with doubt, with sabotage. But it's not doing it out of malice. It's doing it because it learned that this is dangerous. What you call failure is really your unconscious trying to keep you safe. And you know what the cruelest part is? That system is outdated. You are no longer that little girl. You are no longer that little boy. Today, you can hold your pain. Today, you can be the one you needed back then. Today, you can rewrite the story. But for that, you need to face this truth. The conflict that hurts you the most is your past trying to protect you. Your fear of love, of shining, of making decisions, is not laziness or indecision. It's emotional loyalty to your wounded self. And until you recognize it, it will keep repeating. Jung said it clearly, you don't become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. And making that darkness conscious hurts. It hurts to see that you've been the one holding yourself back. It hurts to realize you built your prison out of love, but a prison, nonetheless. And yet, that's also your way out. Because if you built it, you can also take it apart. Today, you can look at your shadow and say, "Thank you. Thank you for trying to save me. Thank you for carrying all of this for so long. But I no longer need to hide. I no longer need to pretend. I am ready to live as who I truly am." And in that moment, something breaks. Or rather, something is set free. Because you realize you were never broken. You were just fragmented. And now you're beginning to gather the pieces. Your soul didn't come to this world to survive. Came to remember. And every wound, every pattern, every block wasn't a punishment. It was a clue. And you're already starting to see them. Now that you know the conflict comes from within, that it isn't punishment but ancient protection. The time has come to do something even more courageous, to recognize the shape your shadow has taken, to give it a name, to see it clearly, and to understand that you're not crazy. You're inhabited by an archetype that wants to guide you, even if it sometimes does so through pain. Carl Jung said that archetypes are universal patterns living in the collective unconscious, and that all of us, yes, all of us, act from one or more of them without realizing it. But certain archetypes are more strongly activated in old souls. not to destroy them, but to push them to remember who they are. Today, I want to show you some of these sabotaging archetypes. You might recognize yourself in one or in several. There's no wrong answer, only an invitation to look inward with honesty. 1. The hidden child. This is your most vulnerable, sensitive, and pure part, but also the most wounded. It's the child who learned to hide in order not to bother, not to be judged, not to feel like they were too much. Today, every time you want to speak your truth, that part whispers, "Better stay quiet, don't make noise." And so you sabotage yourself in the most important thing, your truth. 2. The silent perfectionist. This archetype believes that if everything is under control, nothing can go wrong. It demands more and more from you. Nothing is ever enough. There's always something to fix, to improve, to hide. And even if you seem functional on the outside, inside you're exhausted because you don't allow yourself to fail or to rest. It's a form of self-abandonment disguised as discipline. 3. The invisible martyr. You're always giving. You're always there for others. But inside, you feel invisible. No one takes care of you the way you care for them. No one listens to you the way you listen. And even though you don't say it, there's a silent resentment. Your archetype sabotages your boundaries because it believes loving yourself is selfish. And that simply is not true. 4. The isolated observer. You are deep, sensitive, introspective, but you've retreated so far into your inner world that you no longer know how to connect on the outside. The fear of rejection, of judgment, of not being understood, has led you to isolate yourself. And while you've found beauty in that silence, you've also built a wall, one you no longer need. 5. The disenchanted rebel. This archetype distrusts everything. Authority, rules, the system, love. It hides behind a shell of independence and cynicism. But deep down, it longs for genuine connection. This wound is not rebellion. It's betrayal. Do you recognize yourself in any of these? Breathe. This isn't something bad. It's information. And that information can set you free. Now I'd like to invite you to do a short exercise. Nothing complex. All you need is honesty with yourself. Take a few seconds. Close your eyes if you want, and answer these questions in your mind. What part of me am I hiding out of fear? What emotion am I avoiding because I just can't handle it anymore? What version of me did I abandon in order to be accepted? When did I stop trusting myself? Take a deep breath. Don't judge what comes up. Just observe. You're touching a sacred space, your archetypal shadow. Recognizing it doesn't mean accepting it as your destiny. It means looking at it with love and reminding it that it no longer needs to protect you from things that no longer exist. You're not that broken version anymore. You are now a conscious being, capable of holding your fractured parts without letting them rule you. What hurts you does not define you, but it can guide you. And today, if you've chosen to stay with me until this point, it's because you're ready to stop repeating and start remembering. Your hidden archetype is not your enemy. It's your teacher. And now you're ready to listen. What if the problem was never your shadow, but the way you treated it? What if the pain you've been avoiding only ever wanted to be heard? For years, we've tried to silence the parts of us that make us uncomfortable. We judged them, ignored them, labeled them as toxic, negative, weak. But what is denied intensifies, and what is heard transforms. Today, I'm not going to ask you to fight against yourself. You've already done that long enough. Today, I want to invite you to do something radically different. To listen. Yes, listen. To that inner voice you've avoided. To that emotion you've postponed. To that memory you buried. You don't need complex tools. Just presence. A moment of honesty with yourself. Imagine this for a moment. You're in an empty room, and sitting across from you is your wounded self. That child. That little one. With wide eyes. Tired of waiting. Afraid to speak again. Don't say anything yet. Just look at them. They're there. As they always have been. Now, with a warm voice, say, I'm not here to judge you. I'm here to listen. Tell me what you never got to say. Show me what you had to hide. And then that small being begins to speak. Sometimes with words, sometimes with tears, sometimes only with a silence full of meaning. They tell you they felt abandoned, that they were scared, that they didn't understand why no one protected them, and that to survive they decided to hide, to be strong, to be perfect, to be invisible. And now they are tired. Can you hold them without trying to change them? Can you simply embrace them without correcting them? Can you be now the adult they needed back then? That is true transformation. It's not about eliminating anything. It's about reintegrating what was forgotten. And when you do that, something softens. The tension dissolves. The judgment fades. For the first time, there is peace. Jung said we cannot heal what we haven't first accepted. And acceptance is not resignation. Acceptance is seeing with compassion. That moment of connection with yourself is more powerful than 1,000 affirmations. Because it doesn't come from the mind, it comes from the soul. And the soul only heals in truth. Today, I invite you to give yourself this first gift, to listen without fighting, to approach your shadow not as an enemy, but as a forgotten part of you that only wants to come home. Because when you stop rejecting your pain, when you embrace it with tenderness, you discover that beneath all that fear, there is love. And that love is the beginning of everything. You've already listened. You've already looked at it with compassion. Now, it's time to transform it, not through logic, through the soul. From that place where words fall short, but symbols explain everything. The ancients knew this, that what cannot be changed through force can be rewritten through intention. And that's why they used rituals, not as superstition, but as the language of the unconscious. Today, I want to invite you to one. Simple, intimate, symbolic. Just you, your shadow, and your soul. Find a blank sheet of paper. Write the name of your archetype, the one you discovered earlier. Maybe it's the hidden child, or the perfectionist, or the martyr. It doesn't matter which. Give it a name, a real one that makes it feel like a living presence. Because it is. It's a living part of you. Now, write beneath it everything that archetype made you feel. The times it blocked you, made you doubt, sabotaged you. Allow yourself to pour it all out, without filters, without judgment. And then, write something you never said to it. Thank you for protecting me. But now I choose to move forward. I no longer need to hide. I am ready to walk with you, not behind you. When you finish writing, read that letter out loud. To yourself, to your soul. And if you feel it, burn it. Do it with intention, not to destroy, but to release. Fire doesn't only consume, purifies. Let the smoke carry away those old beliefs. Let the heat awaken a new narrative. Now write a new phrase, one that connects you to the version of yourself you are choosing today. Something like, my sensitivity is my strength. It's safe to be seen without hiding. I trust my light. I can be loved exactly as I am. This is not magic. It is deep emotional reprogramming. It is speaking to your unconscious in its own language. Because what was once a protective archetype can now become a guiding one. The hidden child can become the intuitive sage, the perfectionist, the purposeful creator, the martyr, the conscious healer, the observer, the connected visionary, the rebel, the authentic leader. You don't have to eliminate any part of yourself. You only need to give it a new role. Because when you assign your shadow a new function, it stops fighting you and starts walking beside you. Today is not about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you were before the fear and beginning to live from that place. This is the moment when you stop fighting against yourself and finally reunite with yourself. And in that union, in that internal alliance, your true freedom is born. Maybe you can't fully see it yet, but something within you has already changed. It wasn't an explosion. It wasn't a sudden miracle. It was something more subtle, deeper, like when, after a long storm, the silence feels heavier. feels different. That's how integration begins to feel. Like a whisper that no longer runs away, like a pain that can finally be cried, like a part of you that, after years, is finally allowed to breathe. The symptoms of emotional transformation are not always grand. Sometimes they're quiet, but they're absolutely real. Have you noticed that you're beginning to feel uncomfortable in places where you once forced yourself to fit in? Or that something inside you can no longer tolerate pretending, people-pleasing, or endlessly justifying yourself? That's not impatience. It's awareness. Maybe you've started saying no without guilt, sleeping more deeply, feeling lighter in your body, crying without it being a crisis, just as an honest way of letting go. It's possible that certain people are drifting away, and though it hurts, it also frees you, because you're no longer vibrating in the same pain, and that changes everything. You may even feel a strange sense of peace, even though things on the outside haven't changed much, as if finally something inside has fallen into place, as if your soul has sat beside you and said, "Thank you for coming back." Sometimes transformation shows up as sensitivity. Everything moves you. You feel like caring for plants, writing, breathing more slowly. You notice things you used to overlook. You connect with the simple, with the essential. And there will also be moments of confusion, of deep exhaustion, as if your body were deprogramming centuries of tension. And in truth, it is. When you begin to heal, your energy reorganizes. Your soul takes the lead. And that can feel strange, but also profoundly true. Don't expect everyone to understand. Not everyone will. But you feel it. And that is enough. Because when a part of you returns home, your entire system celebrates. Even if silently, even if no one else notices. This is the beginning of a new cycle. One where you don't need to prove anything. Not heal in order to be loved. Not hide in order to be accepted. Now you know, transformation isn't something you shout. It's something you live. You embody. You breathe. And that is your new language. I am no longer that little girl who stayed silent to avoid upsetting others. I am no longer that boy who pretended to be strong so he wouldn't get hurt. I am no longer the version of myself who lived just to survive. Today, I choose myself. I choose to embrace everything I was, everything I denied, everything that hurt, and turn it into roots. Because now I understand. I didn't come here to fit in. I came to remember, and through that remembrance, to be light without blinding anyone. True power is not about shining more than others. It's about shining without asking for permission, without justifying yourself, without hiding. Maybe the world won't understand you. Maybe many will still be asleep. But you are already awake. An awakening doesn't need noise. It only needs truth. So today, before closing this journey, ask yourself this question. What part of you will you lead today? Will it be your voice, finally ready to be heard? Your body, asking for rest? That emotion you've been holding onto for years, and no longer wants to wait? There are no perfect answers, only brave decisions. And if something in this message touched a part of you you thought was lost, if something stirred, if you cried, if you felt relief, if an old memory surfaced, don't ignore it. It's your soul remembering. And that memory isn't just for you. It's for those who haven't awakened yet. It's for those still believing they are broken, when in truth, they're only asleep. That's why today I invite you to share this truth, not out of obligation, but out of love. If this message broke you and freed you, share it with someone who still can't see. Maybe one single phrase can awaken another soul. And if you feel this path is yours, if some part of you knew from the very beginning that this wasn't just another video, write in the comments, "Today, I choose to lead this part of me." Complete the sentence. Not for me, for you, for the universe, for your soul. Because every time someone chooses themselves in truth, everything that was waiting begins to move. Thank you for coming this far. Thank you for remembering. Thank you for being brave. This is not the end. It is a quiet beginning, but a steady one, an honest one. Yours.